Anyway, hello everyone. We'll just kick off here. I just did an impromptu webinar here because there was a bit of confusion earlier on. I was absolutely up to my eyes. So there wasn't really a bit of confusion from in terms of having a webinar. Obviously, with Anna not being around, it kind of went over my head, and then I got a call from Raleigh, who I think is here, saying that there were some people waiting on 8 o'clock, which is 8 o'clock my time. So apologies if anyone here was on that waiting around because that was the normal time, but. Yeah, it was just one of those things. So we'll put something together properly for next Thursday. So anyway, I want to just there's a few people that has said that they were going to join. So who have we got here? We got Mike. Hello, Mike. Wimpy. Hello, Wimpy. Rebecca. I don't know if we've spoken. Hello, Rebecca. I gather you're from the American Assemblies, are you? Maybe not. Deepu, Deborah, Raleigh,
North Carolina.
North Carolina. Hey, how are you?
Hey, how are you?
Good, good, good. Nice to have you here. Michelle and Edward. Stephen, how are you, my good man?
Not a bother, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, yeah, okay, not too bad. Were you on the 8 o'clock one, were you?
Yeah.
All right, yeah, I was just saying a bit of confusion there because the day ran away from me, and I didn't. I forgot that there was people maybe going to be jumping on that. Well, actually, the nitty thing threw me because she rang earlier on, and I was up to my eyes, and then she said, "Hey, do you want to do a talk at 4 p.m. her time?" And I just kind of agreed. But anyway, if anybody was on that, yeah, as a different take on things. So anyway, I just wanted to give you all some information. Which I've shared actually to our Ireland Assembly Committee. Stephen is on that, and so there's a lot of talk about the 15th of October being a D-Day, or being a very important day in terms of the access or opening of the AFD or the conversion of the AFD. Um, Although I'm still to get 100% confirmation of this. My understanding is that day is significant for um, St. Crown's decentralized platform, which is where they have created their own blockchain. You don't need to know all about this, but anyway, just like Hunter did from the beginning, he wanted to create a decentralized exchange, which is not controlled by a few centralized servers or people. It's controlled by the community, and while we've been waiting on everything to be ready, I believe all things are ready on the technical side, but it's the lawful side that things are being sorted, and from the other banks who are not yet compliant, Basel IV compliant, the commercial banks, so that they can actually communicate and do trade with GFG systems so that's my belief is what has been the main thing holding it up. And but in the October the 15th, just so people are aware, my belief from talking to Anna and getting some third party information from her from Hunter is the October the 15th is significant for the St. Crown Exchange. Now, my belief is that the St. Crown Exchange is it's not going to be linked up to our prosperity, unlike the GFG. So when you have your GFG account, so you'll have the app which will have a QR code, and that will be linked up with your prosperity account. And the prosperity account will have two main assets, which you'll view, which is the AFD, which is physical currency, backed by gold, as you know, and then the prepaid credit, which is credit that's been which is backed by the silver. And my belief is that the first part of the stage on coming up is that the prepaid credit will be released first to pay off debts and mortgages and things like that. The AFD will be there to be able to purchase property and etc. And you will also have a chance when the app is live and when you're at a point of sale what do you call it, machine in a shop or retail that or a vendor that you'll be able to choose to use AFD or your prepaid credit to pay for goods and services. But the main thing that we're going to be paying for the asset is property and land, etc. With your AFD. But the my belief is that this is not going to be possible on the 15th in St. Crown. It's going to be you will be able to exchange, sorry, buy AFD, but you won't be able to use your prepaid credit on that date, and which is how you're going to be used to pay off debts and mortgages, etc. And the AFD, we still have to wait for the system GFG to go live. And that really is just down to the other commercial banks being ready to do commerce and trade because they do commerce with the Global Family Group Bank that's on the commercial side. So Family Bank have set up, trilateral banks, which includes, international trade bank, as you know, on the land and soil jurisdiction, and a commercial bank on the land and soil. And then the system in between integrates that lawful banking with the commercial side. And Global also have a commercial bank in order for them to be able to communicate with the other commercial banks. So it's all of that is set up already from GFG's side. The bit that's missing is the commercial banks, and so a lot of them are still not ready to be able to communicate and do commerce with the Global Family Group's commercial bank, and in turn do trade with the Global Family Group International Trade and Commercial Bank. So the I just didn't want people to have get their hopes up because that's I heard that from a few of the assembly leaders there recently, and I said, okay, wasn't aware that the 15th of October is when it's GFG is going to be opened up. So it's been confirmed to me that it's the St. Crown Exchange, just, and that's already been announced earlier in February when the AFD went live on the St. Crown. So the St. Crown is going live on the 15th with their decentralized um, trading exchange, and that is where the AFD will be visible, but you will not be able to convert. You will not be able to use your prepaid credit on the St. Crown because it's not going to be linked up to your Prosperity account. And the AFD, my understanding is the AFD on the St. Crown on the 15th will be for purchase only. And it won't be converted into other currencies. So again, if you have fiat, you can purchase AFD. That is my belief and understanding as of yesterday. So I'll see if anybody else has any other information, but that would be great to know or any questions to ask. But just while we were on the whole subject, or sorry, it was something I wanted to just relay. So, any questions on that or the banking or anything that's coming up?
Is there a timeline by GFG when we're going to be able to use these AFTs?
No, although all signs are that it's as you know, Anna believed that it would be well before the St. Crown Exchange would go live. But obviously, there's things that are out of their control, and the main things that are out of their control is what the other side have been doing to drag their heels. I mean, these banks need to be Basel IV compliant by the end of October, I believe, or the end of the year. And if they're not, they can be shut down and liquidated. And they all had to be Basel III compliant last year. And that includes being backed by gold and having their technical systems in place to be able to deal with the likes of Global Family Group, because Global Family Group and banking system has been a an equivalent Basel IV bank, so it's already Basel IV compliant. It was for the last year or more. So the issue right now, and the reason why there isn't a date, is the other banks have to be compliant. That's what I believe, and I have asked text Anna last night just for confirmation of that. So you know that's obviously out of their control and our control because they can't force people to do things. They can, well, to an extent they can if it's in the and that's where she's gone to the highest courts of the world courts and international criminal courts and international commercial courts, and she's doing it and done it from the highest level to be able to force these banks to be compliant or be liquidated. And this is what the Vatican has the power, Chancery Court has the power to do. But and they were the ones that, because of Anna's filing in 2014, and after, they were the ones that got made a voluntary chapter. I always get mixed up with the number, chapter whatever it is in America, for the U.S. Inc. to be liquidated, and that's what Trump is dealing with since he came into office, making himself look like a white hat and a savior. He So chapter 11, that's the one. Thank you, Mike. And I always say chapter 22, but 22 on the brain. I have a bit of a, what's that word? OCD with the number 22 every day. So yeah, that's it, involuntary bankruptcy. Yeah. So um, so that's, I know people would love a date, but I do feel that the time Anna is going to be able to take this month, there's no coincidence that it's been proposed that she takes a backseat from the webinars and all that for a month, to give her the time to focus completely on a macro level on finishing the job here to enforce through the world courts and through the international commercial courts the banks to be compliant, Trump to play ball, and et cetera, et cetera, and that ultimately will be the way forward. So I will see if she replies with any further update from my text message last night. But that's it. If there's any questions, feel free to ask. I may or may not be able to answer them.
Would there be a list, Tony, of banks that is already compliant that you could do trade with?
Yeah, I'll ask about that. I'll ask that as well. Yeah, that came up before. There's over 200 banks that they are set up. Global is set up to do commerce and then in turn trade with. And as far as I'm aware, that's how it's going to be opened up, so much that we'll, no matter where we are, in what country or whatever, or what commercial banking systems are in place, that virtually nobody will be stopped from converting their AFD, because all the banks will be set up to do commerce and trade. So I will find out and see if there's any lists of those banks and where they're at.
Yeah, Riley has his hand up there.
Go ahead, Raleigh.
Thanks, Tony. How's it doing, everybody?
Good, good.
Okay, so I'm just thinking now, devil's advocate here. If these commercial banks, that is now the Rothschilds, the IMF, the Federal Reserve, and that, okay, if they
Yeah.
don't, if they see there's no need to do business with us, under what circumstances can we compel them? If we go on the principle of the right to contract or not to contract, what
Mm-hmm.
what right do we have to compel them? Because my concern at the moment is the reserve banks, okay, and the contracts involved. So
Yeah.
how does it impact us in that regard? As you know, all reserve banks report to Bank of International Settlement. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
fully au fait on the banking aspect because I'm more focusing on dual assembly pillar matters. But this is as you rightly said, this has become a very contentious issue. And I know you said something, or there was a comment made that maybe we should get Hunter to come to the INEC group and give us a detailed explanation of what's really going on. Because I also think there is a lot of speculation, and I believe Hunter can quell any forms of speculation. I yield on that for now.
Yeah, the answer, well, try and answer your question. From what Anna said so far to me and elsewhere, there are some things obviously that can be up until now. I mean, Anna lawfully on paper got control, well, as in her fiduciary role and through the Treasury, they got control of the on paper the military and the money. I remember it well. On the October, I was due to do a webinar, and she was going to come on to the webinar, and she did. And I rang her just to check beforehand, and she said, "Tony, I was just about to go." And she, "Wait, wait, wait, Tony, wait, wait, Tony, we have great news. We've got control of the military and the money." So that was October last year. So um, I've asked her soon after that. I said, "Well, where have things got since then?" the issue with it is that that's on paper, and enforcing things is a totally different matter. So this brings the that is why she went as high up as she possibly can, and that is to the very top in terms of the World Court and commercial courts and the criminal courts of justice. And so to answer your question, the way that she's doing it, my understanding is she's doing it from the very top, which also she's using the filing and the evidence and everything else that's gone to the Chancery Court, because the Chancery Court has the power to liquidate any corporation, and so she's using a hybrid solution here, as is GFG. So they've said, look, we've set up the system so that we're opening up the credit. It's in not only in every living man and woman's benefit to have this opened up, it's actually also going to benefit the banks. Now that's an educational purpose. She said she's had to educate heads of banks and heads of banking corporations, and she's had some success, or she's had a good bit of success, but other success, there hasn't been so, because they don't get why this has been set up. It's not been set up to sorry, before I say this, there was a decision they had to make at the beginning whether they were going to go and instead of looking for action to be taken against all these banks and these heads of corporations and whatnot, to pay all this money back and to be hook, line, and sinkered, and or to hung, line, and sinkered in prison, they'd made a decision that, okay, we could spend the rest of eternity trying to make that happen and get justice. So they decided, okay, well, look, we will take on things ourselves. We will balance this off by just opening up the credit and clearing off the debt that way, so that we're not going to be going after them from day one. So that was a decision that was made not too long ago, and that was a strategy which I think is the right strategy. But that also meant then once that happened, they had to rely on the banks to do the right thing, which they're not doing, of course, and rely on the heads of these corporations because they're corrupt. And Anna's aware of that. But she still wanted to see, was there going to be any change in the whole mentality and strategy, because she explained to them all very clearly how this can benefit everybody, and not just the people. So anyway, when things weren't pushing on as she expected, and the technical system has been there for quite a while. Yes, there's been constantly teethering and updating, but the main thing that Anna now is doing is putting through the world and commercial, sorry, courts and the criminal courts, is the enforcement for them to have to do this. For one reason, if they do not do this, and if they're not compliant, and if they don't play ball, they will be shut down. And that's the enforcement that she's looking to do. So, and this is why a lot of the banks jumped ship and went over to bricks, or were sucked into bricks, because that was their way of being compliant. And aside from that, they had, as Anna said, there was only three solutions they had up until last year. One was to go to bricks, and that is not what it seems. Two is to be liquidated, and three is to join GFG. And she has commuted and communicated, and so has Hunter, to all the various corporations. He's done many a presentation across the board to them all, and Anna's been involved in different in her lawful capacity. So they've educated them. Some are on board, others aren't. But in order to get this to work across the board and give the relief to everybody, they need the majority. It's a question I have asked a few times and not got, and that's something Stephen said. I want to ask. I'm going to ask again. How many banks do they need? All of these banks on board, or is it only a certain amount? Is there a critical threshold? I believe there has to be 200. That's my belief. I don't, because this will enable all of the individuals, no matter where they are in what country, to be able to have access to be able to convert the AFD into whatever fiat that they have in whatever currency in whatever country. So that's a long answer to say that. My understanding is Anna is now wants to focus on dealing with the world courts, dealing with the international criminal courts, as well as the commercial courts at the highest level, to get this enforced. And that is one of the reasons she's also been open to take a backseat from a lot of the other stuff that was taking time away.
If I may just add on to that,
Yeah.
Tony. which okay, I have not looked at the banking material yet. Okay, like I said, I'm just focused on other stuff first. Would we have an example, or okay, rephrase? Can Anna make provision on who did she write? Did she write to each federal? No, rephrase. Did she write to every central bank, including BIS and including the Bank of England, for example, to give them notice? Because it will help us in each country that if there is been an individual letter sent to them requesting compliance and communication, like for us, we have the South African Reserve Bank. So if she has done some form of communication, it will help us from this side to start putting pressure on the SA Reserve Bank and then, of course, all the commercial banks under it. I yield.
Absolutely. I remember her telling me this, not a story. I remember her telling me about the Bank of England, and one of the challenges they've had as well. She's been educating heads of corporations, and then there's been changes in the heads of corporations, and she's had to go and educate the next one. So this hasn't been another issue, a challenge. So just that's a side note to what you're saying. So yes, on the basis that she told me that, I asked as well at the time, have you had to go and speak and communicate and present and basically pitch? Because that's what she's doing. She's selling something which they have been either not aware of, blind to, or completely deliberately ignorant of. And for the main reason, as she said, that she knows that they thought that this would be game over for them in many ways. Now she said it is going to happen anyway. A lot of the banks, well, at the very top, know that the smaller banks are going to go kaput, and that's all been the plan. So yes, she has been contacting or been dealing with the heads of these corporations. As I said, one of the issues she's found is having to re-educate new heads when they take over, and some have been deliberately removed or given a side swipe, and others have been taken on board. For example, the I can't remember the guy's name in the Bank of England who took over, and she thought, "Oh, it's literally much harder to deal with this guy than it was the previous." And so we're dealing with that issue of man to woman, woman to man relationship, where it literally is trying to teach a duck how to suck eggs. So I think we have that's it. I'm going to ask the question that you've asked. Well, that's relevant to what I've said, which is to ask about what banks, if possible, that they. Well, I do know she's mentioned a few. Have they actually been in communicado with, and have they got agreements with? And as you say, if they're in South Africa or if they're in Ireland, it would be beneficial for us to know that. She has said that we still need to be ready. We still need to be prepared for as if the banks is ready to go, and that we also look seriously at if we are in that position nominating or somebody stepping forward as a fiduciary, and because that's basically saying, well, you've got someone local to be able to do what she's doing, but at the same time, a lot of people are not ready for that yet. She recognizes. So, and Anna, if somebody wants to be a fiduciary as well, which they're entitled to, I asked her about this 2 years ago and said, wouldn't it make sense that we have our own sovereign nations with our own lawful fiduciary? And she said, absolutely. But the question is, are you ready for that? Or is he or she ready for that? And she explained recently that Anna, as our fiduciary, would have to give the thumbs up to a new fiduciary. But having a new fiduciary, having your own fiduciary, having your own banking ready to go, having obviously discovered and find out the true figures and data of your uh, what we call the slush fund, and the true figures of the so-called public accounts in your nation, would be a massive help, and in terms of the indigenous claiming of the public assets and the private assets. So that's another thing that has been mentioned. But in summary, Raleigh, and I'll let Rebecca come in there now. I will see if I can get details on what banks have been communicated, what ones have joined and agreed and come on board. And if there is any relevant to our own respective sovereign nations, I'll see if I can get some details on them.
Okay, just one point before Rebecca. Can't you ask her to give us a standard letter that we can send to our central banks, specifically the central banks? And then we can give her feedback on what the response actually is. Because, like you rightly said, this is a daunting task, okay? So, if we can come from South Africa side with an official letter with required questions, okay, you write with the CFR, the Comprehensive Financial Report, which is crucial. There we need chartered accountants, which is a highly it's difficult project. We are trying to get one, but if she can give us each country a letter saying, go ask your reserve banks these questions and see what the response is, because we can do PIA applications. Okay, that's your FOIA applications. Then it will help her to know that there is a form of communication happening, and then they can't BS her when the time is ready. And then on that, I will yield. Thank you.
That's a good point. I know they have been dealing with the central banks, as they say, they're probably one of the most unnecessary but crooked parts of the whole financial system. I'm going to open before Rebecca, sorry, carry on. I'm just opening something to read out.
Yeah,
But go ahead.
just a couple of things. We are getting a little confused about our jurisdiction. So the Federal Reserve is a private bank, so they don't have any money. They only have the military scrip. We're not just trying to find banks to work with gold-backed currency, which is new. We
Hmm.
are looking to shift the entire system
Reserve. Yeah.
to actual money. The other thing is there's no official letter. We are the priority creditors. We are the delegating authority. We also are the delegating power, and it makes it absolutely imperative that every country becomes their nation state, has a four-pillared assembly standing, no splits, no branches all apart. We have to do this together. There is no apart. There is one government for one country. There's just no other way of doing this. Once we get it into our heads that we are the authority and we have one government and we can start to work together, these banks are coming online because they can't actually function in the public until we have a public. We are the public, but we're too much in disarray. We are the ones who have to come into a cohesive, centered, and focused force. And our jural assemblies are the ones that will be no official letters. We are making notices and demands on our employees, and also on these private corporation banks that may, and this is the other point, was become vendor accounts. So this is what we can do in the interim because of international law in banking. We can become vendors ourselves, so we can create our own national banks, we the people of every country, and also we can use the infrastructures of these private banks in order to become vendor accounts. So there's a few layers of this, but as you can see, we are the fulcrum of this coming into balance and coming into an actual reality in our world. Of course, we're going to push ahead with the banks because it's kind of like we need the funds in order to get the governments up and running. So America is a little bit in terms of the way that our sovereignty was set up with our founding fathers. We already have our provenance and our sovereign status established, which is what your countries outside of the United States of America, unincorporated, have to establish your provenance as sovereign nations and claim that. And that's a whole nother piece. But without that, the gold-backed currencies are almost an extra step away for you. So that's the part that Hunter can explain, because if you can, or at least email him to explain it, how the gold-backed currency coming now into circulation is our wealth, but we must claim, obviously, you have the living status and emancipated oneself, and then come together as a group. There's no success in different groups in every country. It just won't happen. So you just have to come together. I'm not just gonna keep reiterating that. Everybody knows that, and I know it's difficult with personalities, but honestly, it has nothing to do with personalities at all. So yeah, I think Anna's done everything she can to get the banks going, and also so has Hunter. But we need to do our work in terms of getting our provenance and our assembly standing. So with that, I yield.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rebecca. Now we're in an advantageous position like yourself in my home country. We also declared our own independence in 1916 from the proclamation. So I remember Anna speaking about that. So there's a lot of similarities in that sense. So yeah, but I can resonate with a lot of what you've said there. Can I ask a couple of questions? And you're so North Carolina. So
Yeah.
um, where are you at in terms of the four pillars? And would you mind explaining or
Yeah,
give?
we're bringing our pillars up. Obviously, the General Assembly is the first pillar, and all of our meetings are in the general. But we now have our assemblies forming and building. The international business pillar is up and running well with Neethi at the helm. She's doing an amazing job, as you know, just working a lot and bringing a lot of education. We have our jural pillar. We're hoping in 6 months we'll have a standing grand jury and all of our officials seated, elected and seated. And then we have our militia, which is all of us, but then we'll have an election pretty soon as to those who want to, take on more of an official role. So it's just a matter of getting your people. It doesn't have to be hundreds and hundreds of people. All of you already have enough people. It's a matter of will they stand up and be elected in those seats and then come together. I mean, this has never been done before, right? So
Mhm.
we're all learning from each other and trying to make the best of it, studying the common law and comprehending and understanding what you're all saying. We're not going to get an official letter. There's no template for this. What we're doing, we really have to open our intelligent heart centers in order to feel our way forward, because we're in the truth, like living in the truth is really our basis, right? It's all we have to work on. I mean, Anna has given us handbooks if you need them or would like to take a look at them, if they're good for just taking a look at how you might want to form your pillars. She has, and with help of Terry and others, Terry Sam, who does the Monday night webinar, made manuals for all of the pillars that you can go through, a good 30 pages or so on each pillar. And then they're very different because they have very different functions, but they would do things like describe the positions and then how one would run things. Obviously, the jural pillar is quite, intricate and intense, but there's been a lot spoken about it, as well as with her articles, which can help all of us to move forward and have a little bit of cognizance about how to set up our pillars. So yeah, Australia is doing great, and yeah, you have that sovereign status also. So yeah, you're you're ready to roll, I hope. I yield.
Amazing. Thank you, Rebecca. What role do you have? Are you a coordinator?
I'm the Jural Pillar Chair,
Okay.
teaching common law right now and building our jural pool, which because there's just so many laws that are really unfair, unclear, and unjust, that we as the juries, when we build our pillars, we're going to really need to address those laws very soon. As you know, we have no crimes that are victimless, so we're going
Mhm.
to have a lot less cases in some time from now. But right now, the just taking care of jury nullification, which is the jury nullifying certain laws and insane things that have been put in place by this corporate infrastructure that doesn't belong to us. It's not part of the living, as you all know that. So yeah, that's a big part, jury nullification of these so-called laws that are not ours at all and don't apply. That's going to be hundreds and hundreds of laws. It's going to be a big job. Very few like living men and women cases are probably going to come before us right away. But I mean, obviously there are people that have been harmed, and our prisons are full of men and women who, claiming their status, really they are not criminals and they have not committed any crimes. There are no victims. So there's going to be a huge shift in what's happening in our prisons as well. And it's an exciting time. We're basically going from a world where everyone is guilty, according to military tribunal law, to a world where everyone is innocent until proven guilty with crimes that have to have victims. So, yeah, you can just feel the shift when you even consider such a thing. It's going to be an exciting time. But yeah, Neethi and I work well together. There's a lot of amazing, good people working on North Carolina and other states, and we're all in it together. We help each other. There's a lot of forums where we meet. Hopefully, you guys can come to some of our common law and litigation meetings, which are international. There's 2 days. One is Saturday morning, and the other one might be right after this, actually, on a Thursday. I yield.
Fantastic. Does anybody want to, Rebecca? It's great to have somebody here from one of these state assemblies there in America. Anybody want to ask Rebecca while she's here? Anything?
If I may. Rebecca, on your litigation, I know I've got some of Christie's stuff, but the one for Saturday morning, if you can send me the link, it would be great because I need to make myself more knowledgeable. So if you can send
Sure.
it to me, I would highly appreciate it. Thank you. I yield.
Yeah, put your email in the chat or direct message me. I don't have it. Thanks, Raleigh.
Thank you, Riley. Thank you, Rebecca. Anyone else? What is your DM? Would you mind putting your profile in, or have you got a group or that we could, Rebecca, even your DM profile?
Yeah, I'll do that.
If I can interject, Rebecca, my email address is in the chat. I yield.
Um, Yeah, so sorry, I had myself on mute there. That's good, wasn't it? So I I want to read out now I'm not going to do all of this, but Anna replied to 23 questions that a group that I know that were interested at the time in helping to give our members access to, let's say, sell AFD for fiat. Now, look, this was just one of the many ideas that were out there, and this group asked many questions, and Anna, in her as ever, stepped up and answered these questions. So some of this may be relevant. So one of the questions that were asked, and I'll just run through them. What is the make of the assets that back the new AFD and GFG precious metals slash bonds? And she answered precious metals, jewels, land, cash assets, and ownership of corporations via stocks and bonds in excess of 1.2 trillion dollars in quote, approximately one third in precious metal, the rest distributed in approximately equal portions among the other classifications. The master account 333 555 777 and 999 belong substantially to us. These represent land, cash, metals, and corporation assets. These are all physical assets. We own the Fortune 500 and most of the Japanese listings on the Tokyo Exchange by investment, as well as a majority of major European companies. Um, if the assets were not purchased, what legal slash lawful remedy was used to enable this transaction to be completed? Our American government's assets were in trade from 1776 onward and are matters of record. Gold is not, this is what Rebecca was indirectly alluding to. Gold is not destroyed or lost so long as it can be traced. It even has a specific DNA that tells us exactly where it came from. The Avila Trust assets, which are also American, began trading in 1855 and have been tracked and recorded ever since. If it was a claim, as indicated, in whose name or office was the claim made, it isn't so much a claim in the sense of a legal assertion. It's a claim in the sense of a code check. You have the correct information, names, dates, fingerprints, secret passwords, keys, handshakes, etc., and you are proven to be the owner. We are the proven owners. I'm going to share the screen. It would be better for you if I share the screen. I'll get through a few more here. So these are some of the other questions I think I'll go through. All right, so that's about the claim. Who did the claimant make the claim against to take ownership of these assets? The Federal Reserve, the government of Spain, the Supreme Court of Spain, the government of the Philippines, the United Nations, World Bank, Vatican Chancery Court, the Holy See, United States District for Illinois, the Supreme Court of, wow, the Philippines, the Committee of 300, CIA. Everyone knows who the heirs are. They are trying to avoid the facts and steal the assets by a variety of legal deceits. But the truth is the truth, and they aren't getting anywhere. Neil Keenan, the Ammonite, well, sadly, Neil has passed on for the Eastern Hemisphere, is similarly holding their feet first to the fire, and all the same things apply both East and West. Um, well, this is an obvious question, but anyway, she answered it and said, who's the legal lawful owner? We are. Nobody else knows all the bells and whistles to unlock these accounts, and means of accessing them for credit has been shut down, except the Rothschild is still trying to get credit to the monsters for their wars for profits. Um, one more, a few more. Are the assets held in any trust? I have a startup portion in my fiduciary trust account amounting to 279 trillion, 380 billion. Uh, I am the fiduciary trustee of the United States of America, she says, and the Avilia Family Trust and all other so-called legacy trusts that the perps constructed as collateral. And where they're held, these are the foundation assets of all 63 BIS member central banks. This is what you were talking about, Raleigh, though not all assets have been apportioned to them, and rather vast amounts of assets remain outside the trading realm. We are the underwriters of all maritime commercial banks in receivership to us, and all the chief shareholders of a majority of retail banks worldwide. Um, who holds the gold deposit receipts and other receipts such as SKRs? We don't use SKRs. Much no need to. Our country's deposit receipts are held by us and the U.S. Navy. The Afilia family trust assets are held by us as his lawful fiduciary in international jurisdiction, and by Julius, the final inheritor. Yes, I think that was Demetrius, who also sadly passed the natural heir at the time, the last living heir to the Avilia family trust, and. Anna said she, you know, well, her through negotiated, and that 99% of that, the assets in that would go to the people in that trust. What is the purpose of owning these assets? What are the plans? The original plan was to distribute the assets as endowments to all the governments worldwide, so they would have a continuing source of income sufficient to provide for all government services and infrastructure development. We wanted that burden and source of coercive power removed. Unfortunately, by 1941, when the last major deposits were made by Severano, the world was at war. Afterward, the American generals, represented by General Marshall of the Marshall Plan, asked us to instead provide the capital to rebuild things after the war. We agreed to a 50-year loan, at which time we were supposed to be able to proceed with our original intent, and that 50-year loan came due in 1995, but they asked for 10 more years, and we extended it to 2005. When the negotiations were to take place in 2005, the Department of Federal Reserve simply failed to show up, and although they didn't announce as much, stole the funds by asserting a false claim of abandonment that has been thoroughly disproven. Now they are back on the ropes and under demand. David Rothschild is holed up at the Global Federal Reserve compound in Geneva, trying to avoid the inevitable. Everyone in the banking world knows where the funds for the Marshall Plan came from. We feel that if the endowments for each country are handled responsibly, not by soldiers or politicians, but by committees representing the local people's needs, which is obviously through the assemblies, the chains of poverty, coercion, and ignorance can be severed at last. It's worth noting that all this is attached to an argument that has been going on for the last several hundred years. One side believes that men must be managed and herded like stockyard animals and treated much the same. The other, that mankind have the potential to be self-governing if they are educated properly and given. We represent the latter. Um, I'm going to not go on to there is many more. Um, okay, I am going to just read this one there. So this is the other one that I think is sort of relevant. If the assets or physical gold is being held in a merchant bank vault, with what guarantees are in place to reduce risk of loss of assets? Gold and bullion is distributed throughout the world among all the central banks and many retail banks in federal gold repositories and national repositories such as the deposits in the Philippines. Quite apart from all that, there are additional private repositories that contain additional precious metal stockpiles that have never been entered into trade, which is what we would be doing, trading. And so we have quite a lot of room to grow. Please don't think that we are just focused on precious metals backed currencies. Valid as they are, we have a whole new realm of currency opening up, and that is the trade in prepaid credit that has to be allocated. It says what form of physical, that's blah, blah, blah. Um, what is holding up the Okay, what is holding up the opening up of the AFD for exchange in the open market? It's available for trade on members of the BRICS, for trade and members of the BRICS and anyone else dealing in sufficient quantities of precious metals are able to trade on open platforms for it. We also have open platforms for unlimited transfer of fiat currencies. Um, Okay, so this was a confusing question. What assurances can we get from the owners of the assets backing the AFD fiduciary if we begin private trading of fiat assets with AFD? The question is a bit confusing. She said the Federal Reserve notes are almost as worthless as the euros in actual fact. So our interest in them isn't really for trading. Our interest in them is a basis of recoupment owed to the individual people. See International Public Notice, Joe's Hamburgers. We all know that one, which explains the prepaid credit aspect of this. Can we trade on the G? Should be the G. That's Global Family Bank system without any risk. There is nothing about our system that is riskier than any other system. In fact, the algorithm used and the blockchain technology and private satellites and server make it more secure by far than SWIFT or other transfer systems currently available. That said, all man-made systems are subject to human error and natural disasters. The only one who can give any absolute guarantee is God. Well said. Um, all right, what risk, if any, exists of us trading our fiat to AFD? None that I know of. Fiat is worthless and becoming more worthless in trade every day. We are paying $10 for a smallish bag of potato chips, and the predicted hyperinflation is underway. The only thing that will stop us is if we get the knothead in Geneva off the dime and and balance the books. But all that will do is stabilize the price of gold. Bitcoin is making a bid to become the world currency, but it's probably going to be outlawed because of its 2017 fork that created an illegal stock split and a tiered system of undifferentiated Bitcoin. The originals and the also-rans that a lot of institutional investors will be stuck with, which is the Bitcoin gold, will always have value in and of itself, which is more than anyone can guarantee for FRNs and USDs. Um, okay, that's not relevant. Is there anyone in could be flowing? Uh, okay, can we see the necessary paperwork, receipts, ownership settlements? Frankly, you'd be looking at rooms full of paperwork, hundreds of thousands of pages of hard copy, and sometimes that's just a record of one account. So you'd need to have something specific you wanted to look at. To give you an idea, my husband's personal trading account, last time I ran it was, Lord rest him, was 715 pages long. Um, The so-called official value, if mined of mined gold above ground, is around 20 trillion. Have you got receipts for 279 trillion of gold? She laughed at that one. You are sounding like Lord Sasson a few years back when he famously blustered. Everyone knows that there's only knows that only 15,000 tons of gold have ever been mined in the history of the world. He neglected to know or say gold mined in Great Britain, that is. The gold that is refined to 99% purity for trading exceeds 100 million metric tons, and every day we are finding more rat-holed away. We are awash in gold and drowning in credit. Prince Philip cashed in almost, yeah, 950 trillion in gold-backed life force value and annuities. You would have read about that. What's 279 trillion compared to that? But our 279 is secured as gold against the British crown. So I suppose that what goes around comes around. His purloined gold came from the American and Canadian people's accounts, and now we have already claimed back almost a third of it, with more to come against British Crown assets. At a certain point, the values assigned and the amounts of metals and the amounts of other assets become mind boggling and you are forced to realize just how false and repugnant and arbitrary the doctrine of scarcity really was. We already have enough assets accounted for to take care of every country and every living being on the earth for over thousands of years, or for over 1,000 years. In the future, indeed, very soon, the immensity of the lies we've been told and the false values we've been taught to espouse will become very clear. One of the first, last, and most difficult concepts you will ever be asked to contemplate is that at the end of the day, we are each the value of everything that exists. There is no external value that can compare with the value of the life and love encapsulated in each of us. Um, if anybody wants a copy of this, I'll send it. This is questions which I was going through. My Anna has covered these in different ways in her webinars and that I've hosted, that she's been on elsewhere, and there may be something in that you weren't aware of, but there's a lot to take in. So I will post this up on the Tony Talk channel. She gave me permission to do this. I was dealing with a group of people, on the de facto side that were willing to trade their fiat for AFD, as some of you may remember, and that's where this came from. So I'll stop sharing the screen. So was any of that new to anybody? There's a lot to take in.
Me.
I'd love a
Yes.
copy. Thanks, Tony.
Yeah, no problem. I'll send that. Yeah. Some interesting tidbits in there. Anyways, Mike, while we're on have yourself New Zealand, just people of background. I contacted Mike a while ago. Mike and Tony are the main guys there in New Zealandia Assembly. I contacted Mike when I was approached by um somebody who said that there was a native trust claim from a alleged guy that had a king something he was called. Oh, good man, Stephen. He was a king called King something. What was his name? King George, was it?
King George. Yeah.
So this is important for everybody to know in terms of, because the minute I sent this to Anna, so King George is making a claim that he has a very, very significant claim on the main sovereign, or the main accounts in New Zealand, in the Bank of New Zealand, and he gave a fairly detailed document that was presented to me, or produced to me, in relation to this claim. But when I went to Mike, thinking, hang on, if anybody I should be going to is the guys in New Zealandia, and so I was asked to pass this information on to Anna and see if she could help this individual who was willing, if with Anna's help, and he could make a successful claim of all these assets from the Bank of New Zealandia, um, um, he would disperse, or he would distribute, agree to help our assemblies and help Anna and all this. That was the general gist of it. But when I went, Anna just said, "Is this looks like a native trust claim," which it was. And I went to Mike, and Mike told me, well, there's somebody over there that's on working closely with them that would probably have the highest claim by far. She's part of an Maori tribe that has not renounced or lost their, or given their sovereignty away, which it seems that this King George and his previous tribe have done. So, Mike, would you mind, just for the purposes of the group here, just explain a little bit about? I know you don't want to go into too much details about this individual. She's obviously very, very private as well. But could you just give just a little bit of a background about what she's claiming?
King George or
No, yeah,
Tiafi.
Tiavi.
Yeah. So we've Nova Zealandia. We've excuse me. Have, I don't want to say aligned, that's not the correct word, but we met Tiafi nearly 4 years ago at a presentation in relation to, she was doing common law presentations around the country, and highlighted the egregious intent of the COVID phenomena and all that sort of stuff. And so that's how we met originally. So fast forward, the Arakanui o Tūhoe is, and I don't use the word tribe, but they're a First Nations people who never ceded sovereignty. And there are other Maori groups on Nova Zealandia that are in a similar situation. However, when I read the documents from King George and I shared them with Tiafi with your consent, Tony,
Yeah.
and she said, look, we know about him. And, when I read the document, it's just full of usufruct and God knows what else. And I thought, and it wasn't really well. If a lawyer helped him put it together, then I question the credibility of the lawyer. But anyway, so, Tiafi, or the Arakanui o Tūhoe, received a letter from a lawyer representing King George that said cease and desist, because what Tiafi has been doing is in principle similar to what this gentleman is doing, but there are a number of trusts that were established for the Asia Pacific, and namely Pacific, which we are led to believe also includes Terra Australis. But but I'm not the authority on this, so I can't really speak with authority on what it does. But anyway, Tiafi has been working in earnest for almost a decade, putting all together, all the paperwork, and we're at a point now where she's getting very close to success, not on all of them, but certainly on some. But the intent of the Arakanui o Tūhoe is to secure the benefit of these trusts for all people. And if you read King George's dissertation, it was for him, me, me. And anyway, so they received a letter of cease and desist. Arakanui o Tūhoe got their lawyer to write back with some quite damning details and said the cease and desist order comes from us, and we don't want to hear or see any more of you. And that was some time ago, and there has been no further.
So that cease and desist was before I reached out to you, then, was it?
Oh yeah. This had been in play for some time, Tony. So
all right.
So yeah, and that's why Tiafi shrugged it off and said, "Don't worry about him. He's a corporatized iwi, for the want of a better word. But I think that's what the term that she used. But certainly in the system, and is being manipulated and guided by those that have an interest in him securing the money for their needs versus everyone's needs." So again, Tony, I'm not really the authority to speak on this. I'm a conduit mainly, but we're making great progress. We have worked with the Arakanui o Tūhoe to help us fine tune our documents, our 928s, to the point where it's I call it the full armor with a Kevlar lining. They have really strong documents, well put together, and our Tony here and also Darren have experienced altercations with the constabulary, and in principle then walked away with them knowing that they're dealing with a completely different set of circumstances, and to maybe back off and leave us alone. So but yeah, that's about as much as I can share.
No worries.
There are
one of the reasons sorry, maybe put you on a bit of the spot there, because I knew maybe there's some things you couldn't say, but I suppose what I was getting at is correct me if I'm wrong. The lesson here for everyone else is you have, through your endeavors and your research and which is obviously research into your history and your true history. Okay, the Maoris are very obvious part of the indigenous history in New Zealand, and whereas other countries may not be so obvious. But would it be correct in saying that it was through your research or how did you come across Te Avi? Yeah. How did you come
was
across
yeah,
that?
no, that was, as I was mentioned earlier, Tony. We met Tiafi at a 3 day
Oh, sorry. Yeah, yeah.
seminar, yeah,
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
on common law and that sort of stuff. And Tiafi did she's presented on the last half of the third day and focused on birth certificates and the intent of the COVID agenda to leverage access to birth certificates. I don't want to go into too much detail, but
Yeah.
it shocked me. So my partner and I drove home we sat in the car in silence for an hour because we were just trying to digest what was really going on. It was
Yeah. An eye opener.
really, yeah. So it was an eye opener for both of us. So, but that's how it started, and and then Tony O'Brien, Tony has been I guess what do they call it, the frontiersman for pretty much
Yeah.
everything we did, because he he tried to test the constabulary before he was papered up, and that didn't work out too well. So it was a motivation, and through our connections with TRFE and relationship, just trying to relate our documentation and seeking her advice, because she's quite knowledgeable on matters law, even though she's not a lawyer. That that's how this evolved to the point where the Arakanui Atuhoi has bestowed upon us an existing, call it a trust for the want of a better word, but we now function under what we call Tarahiri Takiwanga, which is they gave it to us and said, look, this is a vehicle you can use, and this is this is why we've been pushing banking and treasury and everything else, because it's a fully functioning entity.
Yeah.
That has the umbrella of the Arakanui Atuhoi. So
wow, you've got the protection there as
nobody's going to touch it, per se, but it is there for every man and woman, with Maori or non-Maori people. So
that's
so
fantastic.
so things are starting to gain traction. Clearly, I think for everyone, the availability of liquidity is really got determining how fast we can move forward, because we've got a lot of people out there to bring on board, and it just requires capital to get out and do the stuff. So, and we're a fledgling assembly and a few people here, and it's been tough to get people to get their mindset around what's really going on. So, but it's coming together.
I'm going to invite. I'm inviting out all of the leaders in the assemblies to just share their story. Be you and Tony, wouldn't it be just? And it would only take 45 minutes, just basically to share how you began, where the main challenges, how you
Sure.
got to where you're at.
That'd be great. That'd be terrific, Tony.
Yeah,
yep,
and
absolutely.
so we'll all be you'll be able to then have a tune into the interview or podcast for all of the state coordinators around the world.
Yep.
Is there any questions? Oh, Raleigh, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Tony. I'm actually glad Mike brought up this issue of the whole trust concept, because okay, I'm going to give South African side. As you know, Cecil John Rhodes had a will and testament, and he had put a lot of the areas that he had claimed through the British African Company into a trust. But also for any country, as far as I'm concerned, there is some form of government statutory trusts that have been created for you call it now the First Nations, the people that were basically here. However, there's also, my concern is that many of the tribes also ceded their sovereignty for a form of protection from whatever circumstances. And I don't know what all the deal is. And I want to say this, you need to look at your statutes, because there's a very strong chance that the trusts are in statutes. I found one, okay? It's called the South African Native Trust. It's got a new name. And then in 94, they created another trust called the Ingonyama Trust for the Zulu Nation in KwaZulu-Natal. Now, what concerns me is that we know it's a statutory trust. What concerns me is, if the stuff is in trust, how does it affect our sovereignty? Because I would like Mike, maybe if he's got a bit of maybe a conversation with the lady that he's talking. I have seen her on a video clip, but this is something we need to discuss, because and then also the churches that I have also got trusts where like for example in the Western Cape, I know the indigenous guys, the Khoi San, are form of beneficiaries on the church trusts. And I think that's also where we need to figure out how to deal with those trusts, because what is happening now, the government is not releasing the trust documents. And the first thing I said to everybody, and maybe Mike can help me on this one as well, is how do we actually force them, I'm going to say force them, to give us the trust document? Because there's a lot of speculation, verbal conversations, oh, there's a trust and we are the beneficiaries. And the first thing I ask is, where is it? Because we need to see what is in there. And then, of course, then the issue of just to come into gold. Tony, I've got a problem with this whole gold story, because I have a book called it's called Top Secret, where massive of illegal mining was taking place through these corporations. As you know, the DRC is in big trouble with regards to that. So Africa, before became the new South Africa, there was a lot of claims made of millions on millions of rands of gold being taken out of the country without anybody actually being aware of it. So would Anna also take that in consideration in order to establish the value of gold that has been taken? On that, I'm going to yield.
I was you'll have to excuse me. You were breaking up. Well, I was breaking up there because of the signal there. So I just does anybody else want to jump in there? I didn't really hear. Sorry about that, Raleigh. I'll have to listen to that back again. Anybody else want to jump in there?
Yeah, I'm hoping Mike might be able to jump in with regards to the issue of trust for the First Nations. I yield.
Raleigh, as I said, I'm not an authority on that aspect of it, and maybe Tony at some point, maybe in that call that we do with Tony and I, we could invite Tiafi as well.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be because then Raleigh, that yeah, whatever answer I give to you would not be would not probably not be, I wouldn't say truthful, but certainly lacking in content and context. So because I don't really understand it fully per se. So, but on the gold point, I think Judge Anno mentioned some time ago that there were 8 million tons of gold that had been recovered, mined, refined since time began, or the recorded time began. So I struggled with the number. My brother's in mining and stuff, and I sent that number, and he says, well, that's a lot, but it doesn't necessarily, you know, in context of what you just said, what did the colonials pull out of Australia before, you know, Australia is gold rich, and there's people still finding huge amounts of gold in areas that were mined in the early days and stuff, or where gold. So, yeah, I think there has been a lot of recovered gold, and what is the value of that? I don't think we'll ever know, to be honest. But it's the best guess. I yield.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, no, I didn't hear actually a lot of what you said or asked or stated, Raleigh. So I'll listen back and I'll come back to you in relation, because I'm due to speak to Anna tomorrow. So anything that is needs to be run by, I'll run by her tomorrow and see if I can come back to you. And is there any questions or any comments or any nice stories to share before we wrap up? And if there's anybody here that wants to ask any questions, please don't be afraid to do so. We will get.
Righty there, all right, Tony. Just on your citizenship yesterday, what you're talking about, righty, right? I did a wee bit of investigation here. And basically what they're saying is that you can transfer your citizenship from one country to another, but it doesn't mention that you can renounce it, if you know what I mean. The form that you're talking about. Now, I am going to give them a ring tomorrow and try and dig another bit out, if you know what I mean.
Thank you for that. We have the forms in the Citizenship Act. It talks about renunciation. Now, I'm going to just give you guys a clear indication about this country. The biggest problem for me was 1920, I think it's 1928. When was that? No, 1914 Citizen Act, 1949, 61, and then 94. Now, we cannot claim this country, okay? I don't care what anybody says now. We cannot claim it because of the trusts issue, and then, of course, the fact that it has always been a commercial companies involved. However, that is where England will come in, and that's where you guys from England is going to come in about the Union of South Africa. Because remember, up until 1961, all statutes in South Africa was Her Majesty, spiritual, temporal, da 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 da. Okay, so what it tells me is that we've never been an unincorporated de jure government. It has always been under the Westminster Parliament. So then maybe what must happen then is I got to look to see if there was any coronation concept involved, because I know there was talking one time of coronation, and then the Union National. That is where I think the block is, because they're talking about Union National, British subject, and South African citizen already in 1928, prior to 61. But from 61 onwards, they only had South African citizen. So the British subject and the Union National fell away. But I suspect that the RSA was created in a different jurisdiction or additional company known as the RSA. And I believe that the Union of South Africa is still standing. But I have to prove it. But I can only prove it through the statutes of England. Because, and that's my problem, because the only way then for us to claim nationality is that we do a complete declaration like the 1776. We'll have to give our reasons, because I've got two declarations from America. One was for the war and then one for the peace declaration. So I'm going to use, because they wrote directly to England saying this is the reasons why we no longer want to be part of you. So I'm going to use that format, which is a non-violent format, to declare a dispute, and I'm going to use the treaties to declare the dispute, because the treaties is also where the problems lie. Okay, so we got the 1904 treaty. All of us became British subjects, irrespective of your background or whether you were an independent or an internal sovereign state or nation. We all, by peace treaty of 1902, we all became British subjects. So that is my concern about, doing the 98s and then also making a declaration to have a lawful assembly. Because remember now, we've got to follow due process of law, and we have to present our facts, prima facie facts, to say that we have the right to make the claim. And on that, I'm going to yield.
Any comments? My signal is really bad here, folks. So I think we'll wrap up. Again, I didn't get it was all breaking up there, Raleigh, what you're saying. I just see a message here. Magna Carta will be pertinent for the South Africa. I'm not sure if you agree with that, Raleigh. The Magna Carta will be pertinent for South Africa.
The Magna Carta is not for the ordinary commoner. The Magna Carta is only for the barons. Period. Read the Magna Carta. It was about the barons requiring ownership and still to continue to hold the commoner as paupers. You can't use the Magna Carta. And I think everybody has been, again, if you look at the Americans, I believe that Anna and them could use the Magna Carta because they have a descendant of William the Conqueror. We don't. Unless we can show that, okay? I know there was an article written by the De Klerk Foundation about it, but again, we've always been subjects. From 1652, we have been subjects. We've never had any forms of right as living free men and women, period. Especially with the VOC and the British South African Company. And I can tell you for a fact, in the 1814 convention between the Prince of Orange and the British monarchy, he sold the Cape of Good Hope or ceded the Cape of Good Hope for about £6 million or something like that. And that's the other thing that everybody globally must comprehend as well. You must go find the treaties, because that will tell you exactly who's in the zoo and what kind of agreements were made. So everything up until, for example, for us, everything up till 1902, we can debate as much as we want to. But the last official treaty, as far as I'm concerned, was 1902. because the ZAR, the South Afrikaanse Republic and the Orange Free State lost the war, and they signed that peace treaty. Although it's a commercial, they still signed the treaty. So yeah, there's a still bit of I'm getting a picture, but I need to confirm it beyond reasonable doubt. I yield.
Okay, any more comments before we wrap up? I have to go myself. I've been 3 hours here now online. I'm fading.
Tony, just
Yeah.
so the called the interview that you were going to do, would that be on Tony's on your podcast?
Yeah, the Socrates is getting all of them up tomorrow. They're all going up tomorrow. There's about 30.
Now, Tony, the interview with Tony here from New Zealand, or Mike.
Sorry, excuse me. Oh, I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah,
Sorry, mate. Yeah.
yeah, I'm contacting everybody over the next week to schedule in a time and a slot for the recording of the state assembly coordinators. Obviously, not everybody's going to want to do that, and that's fine. But it's there. Yeah, I will contact you over the next week, Mike and Tony.
Right.
Actually, it may be Socrates. He's the guy that's dealing with a lot of things for me on the channel. So his name is Socrates. He's a good guy. He will he'll probably email and just CC me in it and just
Perfect.
probably get some suitable days and
Yep.
times. Okay.
Fantastic. Thanks, mate. I yield.
Listen, yeah, and thank you everybody for taking the time. If you want a recording of this, I'll send it, but I am going to post those questions. Thank you very much. Sorry, post those questions onto Tony's talk as well. Thank you very much, Rebecca, for making a special guest appearance. I haven't seen you here before. Excuse me if you have been, and I missed it. But thank you for everyone for your contribution, and we shall see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Thank
Bye,
you, everyone.
guys. See everyone. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Cheers.
Thank you, Tony.
Take care, everyone. Take
Thanks.
care.
Have a good evening.
Take care. Bye. Thanks, Rolly. Bye.
Right.
Bye.